kids, it's Geeky Grandma here, and I want to say hi to Ethan and Hazel and Caleb and Levi and Prometheus and Orion and Noah, and a special shout out to friend Jordan. I have a story for you today. It's called Paddington Bear, and it was one of my favorites when I was a little girl. I loved it. I loved Paddington. Do you know Paddington Bear? I'm going to read you the story. Paddington Bear by Michael Bond and Fred Banbury. This is my book from when I was little, by the way. There's little Paddington. He's so cute. Here we go. One day, Mr. and Mrs. Brown were standing in Paddington Station. They were waiting for their daughter Judy, who was coming home from school. Suddenly, Mr. Brown noticed something small and furry behind a pile of mail bags. "Look over there," he said to Mrs. Brown. "I'm sure I saw a bear." That's a picture of the station. And look, it's Mr. Brown. He's pointing. What does he see? What does he see? "A bear," said Mrs. Brown, "in Paddington Station? Don't be silly, Henry. There can't be." But there was. It had a funny kind of a hat, and it was sitting all by itself on an old suitcase near the Lost Property office. Oh, look at him. He was all alone. Look at this pretty hat. He's so cute. And there's Mr. and Mrs. Brown. As they drew near, the bear stood up and politely raised his hat. "Good afternoon," it said in a small, clear voice. "Can I help you?" "We were wondering if we could help you," said Mrs. Brown. "Wherever have you come from?" Look at him tipping his hat. He has good manners. The bear looked around carefully before replying, "Darkest Peru. I stowed away and I lived on marmalade." Marmalade is kind of like a jam or a jelly. Mrs. Brown spied a label round the bear's neck, and it said, "Please look after this bear. Thank you, Aunt Lucy." "Henry," she exclaimed, "we shall have to take him home with us." "But we don't even know his name," began Mr. Brown. "We'll call him Paddington," said Mrs. Brown, "because that's where we found him." Look, they're going to take him, and they're holding his suitcase, and they're going to take him home to their house. Mrs. Brown went off to look for Judy, and Mr. Brown took Paddington into the cafeteria for something to eat. He left Paddington sitting at a corner table near the window. He soon returned carrying 2 steaming cups of tea and a large plate piled high with sticky cakes. See? And look, those are the sticky cakes. They're like a special treat. After his long journey, Paddington felt so hungry and thirsty. He didn't know which to do first, eat or drink. "I think I'll try both at the same time, if you don't mind, Mr. Brown," he announced. And without waiting for a reply, he climbed up onto the table. Mr. Brown stared out the window, pretending he had tea with a bear at Paddington Station every day of his life. Look, he got up on the table. Look at his face. Couldn't figure out what Paddington was doing. When Mrs. Brown came into the cafeteria with Judy, she threw up her hands in horror. "Henry," she said, "what are you doing to that poor bear? He's covered all over with cream and jam." At the sound of Mrs. Brown's voice, Paddington jumped so much that he stepped back on a patch of strawberry jam, and he fell backwards over into his saucer of tea. Oh no, Paddington, and he fell. Oh no. "I think we better go before anything else happens," said Mr. Brown, and he quickly led the way out of the cafeteria. Judy took Paddington's paw and squeezed it. "Come along," she said. "We'll take you home in a taxi. Then you can have a nice hot bath and meet my brother Jonathan." Oh, look, you got so dirty. And they took him home. That's Judy right there. A taxi is a car or a van with a driver that takes you where you need to go. Paddington had never been in a taxi before. He found it very exciting, and he stood on a little tip-up seat behind the driver so that he could wave to the people in the street. Soon they pulled up outside a large house with a green front door. There's the green front door. There's the taxi, and there they are. Oh, there he is right there. When they were indoors, Judy took Paddington up to his room to unpack. "I haven't got very much," said Paddington, "only some marmalade and my scrapbook and a sort of South American penny." He held up a photograph, "And that's my Aunt Lucy. She had it taken just before she went into the home for retired bears." See, there he is. That's the marmalade. That's the coin. That's the scrapbook. And that's Aunt Lucy. Next, Judy showed Paddington to the bathroom. As soon as he was on his own, he turned on the taps, that's the faucets, and then climbed onto a stool in order to look out the window. Then he tried writing his name on the steamy glass with his paw. It took him rather a long time, and when he looked around, he found to his surprise that the bath was so full of water, it was starting to run all the way down the sides. Oh no! Oh no, now what's going to happen? It's spilling everywhere. He closed his eyes, and he held his nose with one paw, and he jumped in. The water was hot and soapy and very deep, and to his horror, he found he couldn't get out. He couldn't even see how to turn the taps off. Oh no. Look, that's when he jumped in and he held his nose, and he's in there and he can't reach the faucet. Oh no. What's he gonna do? Paddington tried calling out, "Help!" at first in a quiet voice, so as not to disturb anyone, and then much louder, "Help! Help!" But still nobody came. Then he had an idea. He took off his hat and he began using it to bail out the water. That's him bailing out the water. Downstairs, Judy was telling her brother all about Paddington. Suddenly she felt plop. Looking up, she saw a dark, wet patch on the ceiling. "Paddington!" she cried. "He must be in trouble. Quick!" And together they raced out of the room. Oh no. Look, because the water is coming through on the ceiling. Jonathan and Judy leaned over the side of the bath and lifted a dripping and very frightened Paddington onto the floor. "What a mess," said Jonathan. "We'd better wipe it up pretty quickly." "Oh, Paddington," said Judy, "what good luck we found you in time. You might have drowned." Paddington sat up. "What good luck I had my hat," he said. Look, he is so wet, and there's his hat. Sometime later, a beautifully clean Paddington came downstairs. Settling himself down in a small armchair by the fire, he put his paws behind his head and stretched out his toes. It was nice being a bear, especially a bear called Paddington. He had a feeling that life with the Browns was going to be fun. The end. Aww, look how cute he is. Do you like bears? Do you like teddy bears? Have you ever read a story about Paddington before? I'm glad to read you a story tonight about Paddington because he's my favorite. I have other Paddington books and I can read them another time. But for now, it's time for me to go to bed. So Grandma's got to go. Good night, Ethan. Good night, Hazel. Good night, Caleb. Good night, Levi. Good night, Prometheus. Good night, Orion. And good night, baby Noah. And also friend Jordan. See you soon.